Welcome to the Powerhouse Physio podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Lowe, a rowing specialist physical therapist. The Powerhouse Physio podcast is a space for all of us to keep learning from each other, to keep us rowing and performing at our best. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do and that you keep coming back for more. As part of the Powerhouse Physio podcast, I'm exploring a few different formats. So episode 2 is the first roundtable. I am welcomed in this edition by a few friends of mine who we're all getting to know each other as a group. So you'll definitely hear us be a little bit awkward trying to take turns and figure out what to do. But it's, again, with the goal of this podcast being a space where we all get to learn from each other and share more about working with rowers for those who don't know the sport. I'm grateful that these PTs took some time to join me, and as we do this, you'll get a different crowd every time just because our schedules are what they are. But again, I hope you enjoy this episode 2 of our various discussions of things going on in our clinics and common themes that we want to share. That'll just be easier for me. So yeah, have you all met each other at some point? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if I met Abigail before.
I think so.
I
Okay.
think maybe on one of these calls before, correct?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Can't remember. Yeah. So we can take a sec to kind of just say, like, you know, where everybody is, and we all obviously live in the world of treating rowers. We're all physical therapists, and so just fun to have this space to hopefully collaborate with each other, talk about tricky people, talk about, you know, common trends, whatever it is that kind of feels like it's useful for our, you know, clinic week, and then maybe other people will learn a little bit from just what we want to talk about anyway. So Adrien, why don't you go first? Tell us kind of where you are and general what you do.
I'm Adrien Reedy. I live in Rochester, New York. I have my own physical therapy clinic where I'm treating rowers. It's called Rowing on the Square. My clinic's now in April will be 4 years that I've had it. And yeah, I'm treating rowers, mostly masters rowers. I get a couple juniors here and there. And we have quite a big like rowing community out this way. We have probably about 10 boathouses that were kind of are either in Rochester proper or in Buffalo, kind of the next city over. So yeah, just I'm trying to get the word out and trying to help rowers feel better, stay healthy, and continue to compete in whatever level that they're trying to compete in. So yeah, so I guess that kind of answers everything.
Abby, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Abby. I've been a PT for 2 years now, and I just had the opportunity to start treating rowers out of Penn AC a couple days a week, which has been very fun. I would love to get more in my clinic. I'm kind of smushed between Wilmington, Delaware, like 20 minutes away, and then away. So if I could get more where I actually work would be awesome, to save me a 45-minute drive. But it's better. Yeah.
And then Geoff, go for it.
Sure. Geoff Keller. I work out of Boston, the Boston Training Center with US Rowing. I support the Boston area athletes when they're in town, and primarily the para athletes because they're hubbed here. I have my own clinic in Brighton, and I travel with the team and support them when they're on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel very fortunate that I've been able to collaborate with all of you over the years. So I'm very excited to be sort of bringing us together periodically, to be able to learn from each other. So I'd say, whether show of hands or whatever, it sounds like Abby maybe has a fun person to talk about, or we can dive into, you know, I feel like I've been seeing a lot of like shearing based back pain recently, which is a little bit of a different trend in my bubble, I feel like, but we can go either way. Preference?
That's actually perfect because I was going to say Helen and I are treating this person, and neither of us can kind of get to the root of like reducing her pain. And she's been having it for like 3 months now, and she hasn't really had, other than if like she's not doing anything, she hasn't really had success in reducing her pain at all. But it's definitely like SI jointy. Had her, Lisa, you remember showing laying a high foam roller like between your knees, like rolling your SI joint back and forth. I think it was one that you learned from like your pelvic floor physical therapy. That like really flared her up. Like a simple exercise that I was trying to do to like reduce her pain really flared her up. I think it's related. I watched her on the erg, and after that, I checked out her ankles, and her whole like left side is just messed up. Like her left ankle, her left knee has, I think, like medial plica syndrome, like something she's been dealing with for a while with Helen too, and hasn't been able to get through it. But also, and then like her whole low back. But also she like took a long break from lifting where she wasn't lifting for a year or so, was back trying to lift her squat, and with shoes on it was horrendous. With shoes off it was okay. So I've kind of had her start that, but haven't really had quite as much as I thought. So I think if there's nobody watching her.
Anybody have thoughts? So Abby, you're asking. So it sounds like you've got limited ankle range on the one side.
Yeah.
How's like her hip range on both sides?
Hip range is fine. Definitely hypermobile.
Okay. What's the
Definitely
difference of like ankle range on both sides?
I'm trying to think. It was probably like 10 centimeters and 5 centimeters.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Big difference.
it was pretty significant. But we've been working on that. I dropped her to shoes off on lifting, which looked good when I was like standing watching her, but I feel like she might just be going too heavy and not being able to maintain form and doesn't have someone to say, hey, drop the weight. But
Any funky knee angles when she's going into the squat, going into internal and external rotation?
shoes off, she looks pretty good. Shoes on, definitely. So she was working out in these like 12 millimeter Nike Pegasus that were from like 5 years ago in college. So I think there was just like no stability at all. But she's been working out in and erging in. So I don't know if that's just the reason she hasn't been able to strength train without getting ahead of her back pain.
When you take a look at her on the erg from in front, are you getting a lot of like as she's coming up to the catcher, is she getting a lot of motion like from like the knee through the hip? Like I know that I've had some people like when I take that view of them, like screen down and kind of do that top overview, like you can watch like the hip tracking because sometimes when people they don't have if they're hypermobile, they may be able to kind of cheat things out. If you lack the ankle range of motion, you're cheating things out at the hip, and that potentially could be what's like aggravating the back as she's going through the stroke.
Definitely. That I did look at that and I very much agree with that. And I honestly think taking her off the sliders, because she was using the sliders to calm down her back a little bit, opened her eyes a little bit because she was able to row really well on the like without the sliders. She was just so much shorter, but it looked better. Uh, but she hasn't really been erging. Like we both shut her down and her back pain is still really present. She's been mostly doing the Berg. Uh,
Do you feel like
so
her back pain is like direction preference? Is it like, flexion or extension based, or is it kind of just like always pinchy, grumpy, something no matter what?
it seems always pinchy, grumpy. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about getting imaging of any kind?
Yeah, I think we're sending her this week for imaging. I'm not
If
really
you do
concerned
any
about.
amount of like hands-on, like assessment, can you recreate her pain, or is it really
Yeah, if we do like an SI joint P day, like it automatically pisses it off. So yeah.
do you yeah.
Yeah, I think about lack of compression on that side from the ankle or the knee not liking it, as that comes out the chain, if the hips, compressing well, the SI joint's going to get that next sort of,
Hmm.
would be the next link in the chain. It's going to catch all that for us. And if she's super hypermobile, if it's like shearing or gapping or, getting super irritable in there, that can cause all that pain, especially with that sort of the foam roller sort of range of motion control test that you were saying that made her super irritable. If
Hmm.
she's shearing at the SI joint and it's just not able to, tolerate it, or if that what's, causes some of that pain. Some sort of like force closure exercises, getting muscles on either side of the SI joint to start to help to compress that joint so it allows her to tolerate the stress going through it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
have you
think there's a lot
tried?
of motor control stuff behind it too. Like it seems like all the high performance athletes have a very standardized, this is the lift we do, this is the core we do. And a lot of the core exercises that I have had her show me are just like not performed very well. She's not feeling the things she's supposed to be feeling. And I think she has a hard time from like just the social pressures of like not doing the same lift that everybody else is doing, even though like, hey, you're in pain, back it off a little bit. But
That's tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's got to be a fueling aspect of it too. And I know it's hard for her to um, hear that and try to eat more and make a change, but she is a vegetarian and talks about eating rice and tofu and then exercising 4 hours a day. I'm like,
Hmm.
just make sure you're eating enough.
Yeah. I feel like it's always, and I don't know, I feel like this is true of anyone, whether it's like a high schooler, a high performance athlete, or a master's. Like, I feel like it's really hard to actually understand like what the actual calorie demand of our sport is,
Yeah.
until you experience what it's like to actually fuel enough. Um, and I mean, I feel like I personally, looking back at the many, many injuries I had, whether it was like high school or high performance time, like probably 80% of it was because I wasn't eating enough, and it wasn't like I wasn't a vegetarian. I was trying, but I definitely just didn't eat enough. And so it's one of those, I feel like as a master's human now and just a casual athlete, I've I do that better, and it's amazing how much better things go, right? And I feel like that's so hard to get somebody to actually understand until you experience it. But do you guys have like dietitians in the Philly area that you like to use?
She has one that she said she's been using since college. I haven't connected personally with any
Yeah.
dietitian here yet, but
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's always my go-to at this point too. I feel like almost every rower I have on my caseload, I've been like, and let's go meet a dietitian. Because whether it's like a high school kid who, like, I feel like I have so many high school boys who are debating like going lightweight in college. I'm like, all right, well, let's go talk to someone so you can ask questions now and like learn if it's safe and like learn how to do it well and all that kind of stuff. Hi, Sav. Um, so guys, Savannah is a physical therapist in Saratoga, New York, and currently still avid rower herself. So she's started. I'm just saying this because you're muted. I don't know if you want to talk right now, but you can say
Yeah, no, I can talk now.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm from Saratoga, currently training with Adrien, doing the PT and elite athlete thing, and trying to make it both work.
Yeah, and you're starting to see people out of the boathouse, right? Soon-ish.
Yes, yeah, making that happen.
Yeah.
Right now, it's more just like a little bit of consulting, kind of seeing if they like need real PT. But yeah, we're getting it to balls rolling on that end.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just talking about an athlete that Abby and Helen are both sharing at the moment, which if you guys haven't met Helen, she's an athletic trainer who works out of the same boathouses in Philly as Abby.
And so they collaborate, which is amazing. And so it sounds like it's just someone Abby's described as, there's some definitely mechanical issues like asymmetric dorsiflexion and really mobile hips and just tricky core, it sounds like. And then like fueling stuff behind it too, which I really feel like it's almost impossible for rowers to not have that as a layer, but maybe some are good at it. Abby, have you tried like a bunch of adductor stuff?
No, I've tried no adductor stuff. She was telling me she was doing Copenhagen's, which she said felt
Too
good.
hard.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said they felt okay. So.
Yeah, I wonder because like what Geoff was saying too, right? If you're kind of trying to hug the pelvis from every direction, like doing, glute stuff like hip manuals or whatever, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
or stuff. But then I wonder, like I always talk about, I feel like my pelvic floor experience and knowledge is like core, pelvic floor, glutes, and adductors are like a team. And if you don't have all four kind of like positioning and supporting, then that's where like a certain joint or a certain whatever can kind of take too much energy. So I wonder.
Mhm.
Fair.
Yeah. Get the muscles that kind of go across it on the diagonal there, like adductors and obliques and like glutes and lats, and then try to get those all sort of firing together to hold it. So like you said, it's hard with a hypermobile person that's not really feeling what she should be feeling, like connecting her brain with her glutes or being able to sort of set her pelvis. It's hard to, kind of talk a back out and kind of regress her back down to just the basics, but that's usually a good place to start of like, okay, these are your glutes, this is how to fire them, that sort of thing. This is how to fire them through range, this is how to use them while you're squatting, that sort of thing. And then sort of try to put the details together. It's a long process.
I feel like it always takes way longer than I think it's going to. I feel like it's it's been 4 or 5 months and we're kind of still mostly talking about the same stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like you hit that threshold and like something changes. But yeah.
Does compression through the hips feel good to her? Like if given that like manually, if you give that compression to the like I was thinking like just like using like an exercise band, like a tight enough exercise band, and like having her feel like see if that compression gives enough input, and then maybe once she feels that like that if her muscles were able to do that, and like maybe use it as like a teaching tool. Like what I'm trying to do is get your pelvic floor, your glutes, your SI joint to be more stable. Like there's like some instability in here. I'm using this band to help you feel stable. And then, like, I don't know if that would help with the buy-in with the regressed exercises, and sometimes you have to pull somebody back like that. They're like, "Why am I doing this?" Like, I'm a high performance athlete. I can do a lot of different things, and I don't want to have to sit there and like, actually
That's a good idea.
control your body through motion.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I did like the exact opposite the other day where I don't know if you know that like 90 feet on the wall, like postural restoration institute exercise where you have like a ball between your knees and I like gently lifting up her hips, but that did not feel good either. So maybe the opposite might
Yeah.
be better.
Yeah, like one of those super tight, like heavy duty exercise bands, put it like right around the hips, and then like either have her try to squat or have her get on the rowing machine and have her just gently move through the rowing motion. Like, and that would just be like proof positive that she does need that stability. And then you can kind of go in that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, flare up her pain. You just know, sometimes you just don't know, but worth a try,
Or I used one of those mobilization seat belts and just kind of crank it around there.
Yeah.
Right below their ASIS and just try to add that stability and have them kind of move through it. And then, it'll either make it feel better or make it feel worse, but you still get information out of it. But I would bet it would feel better to have that external stability, and that'll kind of hopefully get you that buy-in that Adrien's talking about.
Yeah. Cool. I'll try
That's a cool idea. I've never tried that. I like that. Very cool. in the world of funky, like, low back hippie things, like I was telling some of you guys before, I feel like I've had a lot more, like, shearing force back pain than I feel like I typically have. And then when I've, like, thrown these athletes on the erg and, like, frame by framed watch their, like, side shot of their video, um, I mean, at least I would say there's usually, like, a mechanical reason, like, immediately why it's happening, which I feel like is always nice. I feel like stuff otherwise when it's like, "Well, things are kind of moving fine, like, why are you in pain?" Um, is much harder, but these ones, I feel like I've just gotten a lot of people with, um, either, like, TL junction shearing or, like, lower lumbar shearing, um and I feel like the main culprit has been, like, people just, like, opening early in some fashion, um, and so it was one of those where I was like, "Okay, is this just, like, a new thing that maybe I just, like, wasn't looking for in the past? Or, like, have styles changed, or do other people have this going on?" Or I don't know. That was kind of where I was excited to talk to you guys and be like, "Okay, why am I seeing so much just, like, bony shearing?" And it's not even, like, true extension base. Like, I feel like my previous, like, bony pains have been, like, you know, overlay back at the finish or whatever, where they're just, like, crushing their spine together. I feel like when they come in and describe their pain and then say that it's, like, that pinchy, like, right at their spine, no radiating, like, I'm I go immediately to thinking like, "Okay, I'm gonna, like, watch you on the erg and see that your finish is, like, ridiculous and you lay back way too far." And then they and then I've been surprised. So, I just figured I would see if anyone else has seen similar mechanisms or anything kinda coming about, uh, or what you do or yeah, I guess, I don't know. Do you guys tend to see have you had more of the shearing kind of pain recently?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of over compression at the catch where they're just sort of like throwing their shoulders forward to try to get more length. And then that sort of like, get back up to a neutral position and they're able to kind of drive through their legs. That TL junction sort
Yeah,
of
okay.
pain there. But it seems like it's a lot of just like uncontrolled and sort of over compression at the other end of it up at the catch.
So I'm not the only one telling people to row shorter all the time.
Yeah, like, chop 10% off. Like, just come up as far as you can control and stay long instead of just sort of like dumping forward and trying to get as much length as you can. Stay connected with your legs, try to use the hip hinge and not sort of just like catch up with your trunk and then go into that good drive. That's kind of where we've been focused on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work on like the low hinge in order to prevent that like over compression. Like a lot of that, almost like the TPI stuff with like the hinge over. Then can you rotate your hips? Can you rotate it just so that people can separate it? And finding that, or also use the Concept 2 app to show their stroke length and show that it's actually better if you sit up and don't reach with your shoulders. And I feel like that's been like the biggest thing is just getting them to feel the difference and then showing that that difference is beneficial. And then it's just a matter of repetition, repetition, repetition. Well,
I put a lot of people on like hands and knees and have them do like cat cow, get neutral, and then just let the hip rotate inside the joint and like keep the body neutral and try to draw the bottom towards the heels. And a lot of times that's like really telling, like half the time, like as soon as they start to move their hips, their spine flexes. And I'm like, nope, 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 go back, try it again. And just, trying to get people to understand hinge. And because like, with rowing, with it being like kind of like that whole like pelvis on hip, but then it's like hip inside of pelvis and like getting people to understand what it feels like to rotate pelvis on hip without low back flexion, and then letting the hip joint roll inside of the pelvis. Like there's like those two different things they kind of have to be able to feel and control too. And like I always talk about, like I go like call it like getting out of the power position. They'll go up to the catch and they'll get out of the power position, get back into the power position, and then drive. And I show them like that little micro movement in the whether it's like the junction, the upper junction or the lower, I'm like, you're going to get this extra movement in there, and you're doing this 100, 200, 300. If you're doing, steady state, you're doing it thousands of times. And so that micro movement's really going to cause eventually some type of wear and tear that you're going to notice. So yeah, I like the hands and knees hinging.
Yeah, I like that one too, of like throw a foam roller across their back when they're in hands and knees and just have them rock back into that flex position and show them, have a mirror next to them and show them where their back is, where they're losing that connection. It's a great one.
Yeah. Yeah, Sav, I feel like I've stolen a lot of that stuff from the TPI world too. Of just like having someone stand and attempt to like find, different pelvis like movements without all the things. I like the idea. I haven't literally, it's so silly. It's like, okay, so having someone with a foam roller and like I'm what I'm picturing is you guys saying like basically going back into like a child's pose kind of position without like flexing their spine. I'm like, literally what a simple thing. Haven't tried it with the foam roller on somebody's back before. What a good idea. But yeah.
I love the like TPI as a secondary to the like cat cow, because I feel like so many people, once they get in and they're kneeling, then it's like all of a sudden you put a little stretch on the hamstrings and everyone's brain is like, like can't do it. But that's in rowing, I feel like where we need to get it is like early in the drive, so that we don't get that like late dip in compression. But I love doing that as like the secondary, and then being like, okay, that's the feel. Now take that the next step on the water.
Yeah. The other that I feel like I like to use is like a tall kneeling, almost like full hinge, right? Like starting up nice and tall and then kind of trying to get that child's pose type position at the bottom. And I feel like it's like super challenging because gravity is even trickier than it is for when you're actually rowing. But I feel like that's another one that I feel like kind of it takes the hamstrings out still a little bit, right? It's not like full standing like your knees are bent, but it gives like the chance to have your hands on your hips and like feel things move and do all that. Um, but the other that I feel like I've been using a ton recently is we have, I think it's called a Roman chair, like one of those, back extension things or whatever. And I feel like I've been using that to have people drop the support so that they have like a good gap from their ASIS to it. And then like having them put their hands on their hips and really feel like I'm getting this body's over motion completely with my pelvis. Um, I feel like that's been a spot where a lot more people have had like kind of that aha, like this is how I put the pieces together. And then in some ways, I feel like the loaded hamstring position, it usually gives me a little more length in their hamstrings, like after they've done a couple rounds of it too, so that if their hamstrings are a piece of their trickiness of getting pelvis through, it it's given me a little bit more space so they can actually feel what it's like when their hamstrings aren't just like stopping that pelvis coming through. I feel like for a while I stayed away from it because I feel like I just felt like everyone did it really poorly, and then I feel like I really love it with the gap to get ASIS like all the way through and the ability to really feel what you're doing there. Um, I think that's what that thing's called. Like Roman chair thing, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, sometimes usually tall kneeling's my next progression. I usually throw like a super band around their hips and like try to load their glutes and say, okay, like glutes are on, my hands are on my hips, my glutes are controlling my trunk going forward eccentrically, and you're just trying to like stay in your glutes and stay, in your posterior chain as you compress everything, and then flip the switch and like, squeeze glutes and come out of it, and then go into all that
So in
fun
some
hamstring
ways,
stuff.
almost like a pelvis-based Nordic-ish.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cool. I feel like I tried that at some point with, it's actually a person that you and I have shared, Geoff, um, that I feel like I like the idea of the band because I've been like just holding his calves down and I've been putting him like so his hips are right in front of a bench. So then he kind of like, comes pelvis forward, gets belly to bench and comes back up instead of like keeping hips extended and coming all the way to the floor for a Nordic. Does that make sense? So I've been like holding him, knees bent. He starts in tall kneeling, comes all the way down with his pelvis and all the way back up. And this athlete had high hamstring and adductor issues, and I would say it's worked really great for both. Um, and and like how incredibly challenging it was the first like almost month we were doing it, and then we just have stuck with it for like a crazy amount of time. And now he can load it with like a decent amount of plates, and he can still like, at first I went like, okay, we're gonna do this, great, it's not so hard anymore, let's add some speed. So I was like, okay, come up and down as quick as you can, like think about kind of getting that, you know, actual rowing paced body movement with your hips. And that got easy. So I was like, here you go, here's some weight. And like, I feel like I haven't found something quite as effective for that, like hip pivot and like adductor hamstring loading. So I just stuck with it. But I really like the band because that's a more independent, as he's now back on the water, or, you know, like back with the team more because he's healthier. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, you could do it as like a Nordic, or you could do it as like a hip hinge of like you're trying to go into that compression. Uh, so either way, you're trying to kind of stabilize and get glutes into the fold and not have it just be hamstring dominant.
Yeah. Interesting.
Or even like Adrien was saying, like trying to have, you know, femoral heads kind of seat back in the acetabulum better and not just be jammed forward by, you know,
Find those glutes to
quads
center
and
it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get kicked off in a sec here because I haven't upgraded my life, but helpful to do this for everyone. I mean, that's the goal, right? Like fun for other people to get to like hear us talk about things and learn and whatever, but like I really am just excited to learn from you guys and like be able to kind of push each other forward. So we'll kind of try and gather together again in the near future and do this again. I hope this was useful. And yeah, thanks for hanging out.
Thank
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Lisa.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, you
See ya.
too.
Are you enjoying the Powerhouse Physio podcast and would like to learn more from me? Check out my website, powerhousephysio.com, and my course for non-rowers working in the rowing world called Keys to Working with Rowers. And always feel free to reach out with questions or comments or anything that you want to talk about in the rowing world.